Ladies and gentlemen, what are you going to do if it all hits the fan? Can you survive the apocalypse? Is this stuff actually useful? Well, I have a man we're about to talk to who actually lived through it. Let's get into it right now.
International Stacker.
Hey everybody, International Stacker here, and I am here with a man who experienced what we talk about all the time in the YouTube community. His name is Fernando Aguirre. Did I say that right, Fernando? Aguirre.
Yeah, good enough, yeah.
Well, I want to hear from you firsthand, and I threw some silver up here on the table because, as you know, my channel is about stacking silver. But can you tell us a little bit
Sure.
about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Fernando Aguirre. I am an author. I have a YouTube channel as well, and I consult on survival and preparedness. People that are interested in this sort of thing usually approach me for my advice, mostly because I have gone, as you just said, I went through an economic crisis, an economic collapse in my country, in Argentina, in 2001. So since then, I've been researching, writing, studying, and dedicating myself to this for quite some time. Survival and preparedness covers a pretty broad spectrum of skills that you should know about. But yes, most definitely, the economic aspect is a pretty important one of those. And no doubt, silver, gold, precious metals retain their value as fiat currencies collapse, as we've seen time and again throughout history, and it's been my experience as well.
Well, Fernando, as you know, I work in emergency management. I travel around the world helping governments, countries, cities, towns, companies to prepare for disasters. And I've been through disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding, things like that. But I've never had the experience you have had. So can you please tell us a synopsis of what happened, maybe start a week before it happened, tell us the series of events that came down, tell us your firsthand experience, what happened, how you dealt with it, the mistakes you made, the things you did right, and what you would change if you could go back. So just get into it. The floor is all yours, my friend.
Okay, so one of the you see several signs. One of the first things is, of course, when banks start little by little start coming up with restrictions up until the point where they close people's accounts, they freeze people's accounts, and you can't get your money out of the bank anymore. But soon after that, what you see is a strong devaluation of the currency. We saw our peso, our national currency, was pegged to the dollar 1-to-1. So it went from $1 to 1 peso to $1 2, 3, 4 pesos. So little by little, it starts losing more and more of its value. Soon enough, we lost like 70% of its value, got just melted. And when that starts happening, one of the things people realize is that gold and silver retain their value. Not a lot of people have a big stack of gold or silver, but if you have it, most definitely helpful. And people started selling jewelry, anything they had as necessity became more of a problem. They would sell even wedding bands or any sort of jewelry that they had.
Wow. So as this was occurring, so banks started restricting your people's money. Your currency started to get heavily devalued against the dollar. So did this cause hyperinflation? Like, were people having to cash in a wedding ring to buy a loaf of bread?
Yeah, that sort of thing. I mean, a wedding ring would because the beauty about precious metals, and you know this very well, is that it's not that it goes up in value. It just keeps its value as the paper money starts losing its own. So you would be selling your wedding band for whatever. Usually when you sell something like that, you're going to be taking a big hit. So maybe you got like 50% of spot of the gold price. But man, that was still a lot of money. And you weren't just going to be buying a loaf of bread. You were buying, you had a decent chunk of cash with just one of these wedding bands.
I see. So whereas before this thing started happening, maybe the wedding band, you get like, say, 1,000 pesos. And then during this economic collapse, the same wedding band might get you 50,000 pesos just because of the devaluation. And then the loaf of bread might have gone from 5 pesos to 5,000. Is that basically what was going on?
Exactly. That's actually quite right. For our case, what happened was that the local currency, the Argentine peso, kept dropping in value, but everything retained its price in U.S. dollars, or in gold, or in silver. So you're the same. I mean, if your wedding band bought you, I don't know, 100 loaves of bread before all this happened, with whatever exchange rate you had, it would still buy you that same amount of bread, because it retained its value in the international price market, right? It's very similar to what happens in Venezuela. In Venezuela, if you go and buy right now a can of tuna, it's going to be costing you one US dollar. It's even more expensive than in developed countries. But if you have the gold, if you have the silver, you sell that for whatever exchange rate is going on, and that allows you to buy whatever it is that you need.
So what did you do during this economic collapse? So I'm sure you noticed issues with your account. You saw things being devalued. What happened to you? What's your personal story, and how did you respond?
Well, I was just getting married at that point, still in college, so it was pretty complicated. We just rolled with the punches. I was still, we were just getting married, and it was very interesting in terms of wedding presents. We didn't get a whole lot of those. Let's just put it that way.
Wow. So how long did this situation last with you? I mean, how long did you have to ride it out for? Did you leave the country? Did you flee? Or did you just wait it out till things stabilized? What happened?
Well, I was pretty fortunate. I've always been rather resourceful in that regard. I was working. I started writing as well, and this was in 2001. I was working in architecture and that sort of thing, which was my field of study. But I ended up leaving almost, was like 12 years later after all of this. So yeah, it was an interesting few years, but just trying to get along as best as you can. It really, I mean, we went through very tough times, because imagine all of a sudden seeing prices of basic necessities double or triple. Man, everything was super expensive. And as I'm saying, just getting married, getting a family started at that point, that was very, very difficult.
Wow. So what do you think, from your perspective in your life, and it might have been different for different people, during this time, what was the most useful thing that you actually had?
Right. Well, if I had a chunk of gold or silver, that would have been definitely the most useful thing to have. But I didn't. I mean, I was not a stacker by any means. What little savings we had, those were of course precious, but means of self-defense, that's definitely something that came in handy and was very important, and I have no doubt that made a big difference. So when among the prepper community, when they say stack gold, silver, and lead, they're very much spot on target. It's really not all that unreal, because it is. That's something I read about a lot in terms of security, how dangerous things get. You not only need those precious metals, you need means of defending those, because if not, you're going to be losing those quite fast as well.
Now let's drill down on that a little bit more. So during that time, could you have firearms in Argentina during that time? Could citizens own firearms?
Yeah. I had a lot of lead. Let's just put it that way. I had no silver and no gold, but lead I had enough.
Now, how dangerous did it get? Like, did you actually get in any gun battles, or did you have it and you thank God you didn't need it? Like, was there running gangs in the street robbing people? Like, what was going on?
Yeah, it was pretty much what you just said, just criminals running loose and doing whatever they wanted. There was a period of anarchy, and you guys are seeing lots of that right now in U.S. So right after 2001, we had lots of that, but lots of looting, people just breaking into stores. Again, very similar to what you're seeing, and that lasted for a long time. But after that, what we saw was a huge increase in crime in terms of kidnappings, home invasions. It became very dangerous out there. I had several close encounters and was glad to be armed at that time. And being armed made a big difference. No doubt whatsoever about that.
Well,
So, yeah.
I lived in Arizona for a while, and most people in Arizona are armed. It's one of the freest states in terms of, those rights, the Second Amendment rights, and very little crime there because most criminals know if they do a home invasion or they rob someone, they can pay the price. And, it does happen, but it's a lot lower than places, say, like New York or Chicago, where it's illegal, which means only law-abiding citizens don't have it and the criminals do. So kind of
Right.
touching back, you said you wish you had more medals. If you could go back 1 year before this economic crisis in Argentina, what are the top things if you knew it was coming, what are the top things you would have done besides leave the country? That's not an option. You can't evacuate. What would you have done differently? What would you have bought or stacked or prepared for to do better in that scenario?
Okay, yeah, just one point regarding the last question. What I'd like people to understand is it's not you getting in constant gun battles, because you're not going to be surviving many of those. In reality, and I think I'd like people to understand is if you have the firearm and you have the training, which is crucial, there's a very good chance that you won't have to fire a single round, because you will dominate that situation entirely, and no one will get hurt. This idea that if everyone has guns, it's a Wild West, it's actually the opposite. If you control the situation and you know what you're doing, you can properly train, and you have that gun when you need it, there's like a 9 out of 10 chances that no one gets shot, everyone goes their own way, and you're safe, right? I think that the NRA has a statistic about 90% of the violent confrontations involving law-abiding citizens with firearms end up with no one getting shot, because you have your gun, you protect yourself, and the criminal understands that. That's been my experience by a wide margin, and people should understand that. This idea that everything is made worse by guns, that's more of a left-wing kind of thing. It's not real. When things get violent, the best thing you can do is have that firearm and know how to use it. Now, regarding your question, what is it that I'd like to have done different? Man, I think that I would have liked to have a little bit more. Well, I had savings, and of course, it would have been great to put a lot more of those into precious metals back when it was still more of a possibility, and stocking up a lot more food. Food is crucial as well. Food is key. So if you stock up on a nice solid pantry, that gives you a lot more peace of mind.
Gotcha. And just a shameless plug, everybody, if you go to preparewithis.com, My Patriot Supply food, freeze dried, shelf life of 25 years, throw it in a closet and forget about it. And if you ever end up like a situation like Fernando did, it can save your life. It's the cheapest you're going to find on the net, and a kickback comes to support me and what I do. So sorry for the shameless plug, Fernando. Sorry about that, my friend.
That's okay.
So you made an interesting point. So would the approach be, because obviously I talk a lot about having a emergency fund, having cash in the bank, and I like to focus on having at least 6 months worth of expenses. That way, if you lose your job, what we just saw with the beer, I call it the beer flu, Fernando. I don't want to say the real name because I don't want YouTube to censor me. I call it the beer flu, if you get that, because it's the beer in Mexico, right?
Yeah, people lost their jobs during all of this, and having that peace of mind. If you have food, if you have funds, you're out of job, and you have money to get by. Lots of people lost their jobs because of all of this, and you're out of work for not just a couple of months. You may be out of work for 6 months. I mean, in my case, what I saw, I've always been pretty lucky and pretty proactive in terms of if I start looking for a job, for example, right after all of this started in Argentina, I went to a couple of job interviews, got both of those. that is mostly about the way you go about it. If you're positive, if you have a can-do attitude, that usually helps you out a lot. But even with your best attitude, when things are really bad, you may end up without a job for 6 months, 12 months. It wouldn't be the first time something like that happens.
Right, and you just remind me what I was going to ask you. So say you have 6 months or a year of savings in the bank, and say you're in a country and you start seeing your currency get devalued, you start seeing inflation. How much of that would you want to keep in cash, or should you just take it all and put it in something like a precious metal immediately that's going to hold the value, and then cash in the metals as you need it?
Yeah, well, I like having like bunch of different baskets, putting eggs in different baskets, as they say. So some cash is still important. Even when you have something like this going on, the saying of cash is king, during a period of time, that's still very much true, because even if as it starts losing its value, especially during the first stage, people start running out of money. And that money can be quickly liquidated and in exchange for something that you actually need. So you use that cash during the first period of time. You keep your precious metals for the more of a long-term, medium-term. I also like Bitcoin. To be completely honest, I think it's a yet another tool to add to your bag of tricks. And diversifying gives you this option of using different tools depending on what you need and the different times you're at. One of the things I would say though is checking how much weight you have in terms of silver and how much of that you want to convert in more compact, easier to carry gold, which is it's something that I came across in my own experience when we finally left. I had already started stacking a little bit of precious metals, and most of that was silver, because as you will know, it's a thing that you can buy a nice bit of it, and you have that, and it's cheaper, it's more affordable. So you buy a nice coin of silver. Now, once you have a big stack of that, if you have to be mobile, that can work against you. So my advice for people is, if for your strategy of moving around it in case you have to, check out how much ratio you have, how much gold to silver you have.
Right, and that's interesting you said that, Fernando. And I made a top 5 mistakes of stacking. And originally I stacked purely silver because I'm planning to play the gold to silver ratio. That's my overall goal. But you're right, and people leave comments all the time. Well, if it hits the fan, you have to evacuate. You're not taking the silver with you. Well, yeah, my plan is not to go mobile with my silver because I've got over 6,000 ounces of silver, right? So my plan is to leave it in its hiding place that nobody's ever going to find. Take the gold with me, and then I'm going to take my bag of silver dimes and stuff I can barter with. Now, here's the next question. So during this time, did you have to convert your metals to currency? Or for instance, could you go to the bread shop and give him like the equivalent of a silver dime in Argentina pesos? Could you give him the equivalent of like a silver coin and get it that way? Or did you always have to convert?
No, and I'll explain because it's a little bit more complex. The thing is this, there's not the same culture in the United States as in Argentina. For example, right now in the United States, there's enough of a percentage of the population that understands the value of gold and silver that among like-minded people, you have a nice chance of, okay, yeah, I'll buy something with precious metals, and you know what junk silver is, you know what a pre-65 quarter is. Now, we didn't have that in Argentina. There's not that kind of culture. So the way in which you would use it would be go to a dealer, and not one of those I buy gold places would usually kill you with the exchange rate. You would go to an actual precious metal dealer downtown, and that's where you would sell. Like if you have recognizable coins and bullion, that's where you would get a more of a fair shot. Now, at the same time, most people would deal with these. Most people would just sell whatever jewelry they would have. So one of the things I wrote about it in my book, The Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse. Yes, plugging myself there. But if you find decent prices, like close enough to spot for junk silver and junk gold, those are good bets as well, because these places will usually not give you a fair shot for your 0.999% .999 gold and silver. It's going to be more of a junk value that it has. So
Right.
you want to have different tools within precious metals. You want to have some bullion. You want to have some recognizable silver and gold, and know who you're supposed to deal with in each one. So, for example, in the case of Argentina, if I had like a Krugerrand or a silver eagle or a gold eagle, I would take those specifically to a precious metals dealer. That's going to be giving me more of a fair price for that. So I would exchange that for whatever pesos or US dollars I needed for that, just a couple of days, because remember, the inflation is constantly melting that money in your pocket. So you would just sell that and buy whatever else you need and keep the rest.
So you made an interesting point there. So here's a question for you. In places where precious metals aren't noticed as much in terms of coins, would it be smart to stack a bunch of basic gold bands that all look like wedding rings? So you could actually go to a hardware shop and say, hey, here's my gold ring. I need a ladder and some sandbags,
Absolutely. That's one of the things. That's exactly one of the examples I gave in my book. And when you're in your stacking period, if you can get to a pawn shop and buy some of that, wedding bands would be the more simple kind of stuff. But you know what? It's also a matter of safety. If I go to I buy gold place and I sell that ring that I bought from a pawn shop for very close to spot, and I sell that in that I buy gold place, it's not going to be catching anyone's attention. I'll be just another desperate person selling my wedding band. And it doesn't matter if I have 20 wedding bands in a little bag. It's just not catching an attention. If I drop in that place with an ounce of gold, it's okay. This guy has gold. This guy stacked.
Let's go rob him. Let me tell my cousin Rico, and let's go rob him.
Right.
Wow.
Exactly. That's the real thing.
That's interesting. And if you're looking at my hand here, unfortunately, I don't have a ring. I'm still trying to find Mrs. International Stackers. So hopefully I'm successful in that soon. Maybe I'll need to come to Malaga, Spain, where I've been before, and find one there. So here's a question for you. Let's draw some parallels to the United States. What do you see happening? Is it 80% of what happened in Argentina? Is it an exact copy? What's happening now in the United States that you saw in the early days in Argentina? That should encourage people. Because here's the thing, Fernando, and you know this as well as I do. When you're helping people prepare for disasters or emergencies or countries or companies, and they don't see the instant benefit of it, they might lose focus or lose interest in it because, whatever, I prepared and nothing ever happened. But what are the parallels now? So kind of also to encourage people that preparing is a smart thing, even if you don't immediately have a disaster.
Man, if you don't think it's important to prepare with everything going on right now, man, 2020 has been the year of, for a lot of people, they felt validated with everything from the virus going around and the social problems. I mean, in the United States, you're going to be seeing very tough times ahead. There's really no two ways around that. No matter who wins in the next elections, it's not going to be an easy ride. The economic aspect is already taking a big hit, and it's only going to be getting worse. It's not going to be getting any better. The kind of violence you see on the streets, the kind of anarchy. There's entire cities in the United States going down right now. Yeah. People are leaving New York as if it was in a disaster movie. Right. People are just fleeing the place. That has a cost. That has an economic impact, which I don't think people still quite comprehend how bad it will be. So if you haven't prepared yet, man, you're kind of running out of time, actually.
And here's the thing, and all this stuff is happening, and people don't see instant effect, and they don't realize this thing is lagged. Yeah. There's a delay. When this thing hits, I think we're going to see the most epic economic issue, way worse than 2008. Because in 2008 we just kicked the can down the road. I think we're in for the craziest ride forever. So that's why I've been making my videos and trying to get out to as many people as possible. So you said in Argentina, people were looting and rioting. Did it start out as like in the U.S. we're seeing protests that lead to looting and rioting? Is that how it occurred in Argentina? And if so, how long after that did the actual collapse start occurring?
Right. It's a little bit different. In terms of what happened in Argentina, it was mostly as a response to the serious economic crisis that we had been seeing. There was also a political wing as well. There was also an attempt to get rid of the president, which was not someone affiliated with the traditional left-wing politics that has been running Argentina for a long period of time, and it was a way of removing him as well. So many of these things were instigated. That would be a parallelism with what you're seeing in the United States. I mean, man, what you're seeing in the United States is it's 90% politically motivated rather than actual real problems that people have.
Right.
People, this idea that everything is horrible and the United States is the most disastrous, terrible place on the planet, that's simply not real. So there's a political element just to make this happen. And they're being quite successful at it, to be honest. They've managed to cause chaos and anarchy across the country in most of the main cities. And of course, people that are, in smaller communities and such, maybe don't see this in their front door, but it's happening in some of the main metropolitan areas, which are also the ones that are, in many ways, the economic engine for the rest of the country. So if you have your 10 largest towns in flames every night, you're going to be feeling the impact nonetheless, no matter where you live.
Yeah, well, I mean, Chicago just had it again, and like Portland's had 81 days of like constant looting and people getting beat. And like, here's what I say, and I do my best to keep my channel apolitical because, I want to get my message out to as many people as I can. But if you watch my videos, I'm pretty sure you know which side of the spectrum I'm on. But whether you support Trump or whether you hate Trump, the one thing I think anyone can do is turn on the news, turn on the mainstream media, and you can see that a lot of this is being leveraged for politics. Everything from the beer flu, because I was part of the national response for the beer flu here in the United States, okay? And it started out serious and turned totally political. A lot of these economic issues, the looting, the rioting, a lot of it's being driven by politics. And unfortunately, that can lead to bigger issues. So here's the question. If you had to give advice to everyone right now, what should they do to prepare? You can give them a list of items. You can tell them, maybe to study something, maybe buy your book. And where can they buy your book? Where can they get that?
Yeah, well, that would be one of the things I would definitely recommend is get this one. This is a book I first wrote after the 2001 economic crisis in Argentina. It was my biggest, most well-received book when I first published it. It's called The Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse. It's available in Amazon. You can find it just looking it up. It has over 500 reviews, so it's very well received. And then there's my latest book, which is this one, Street Survival Skills, where I go into lots of the things in terms of staying safe on the streets, lots of self-defense, awareness, staying safe in your house, avoiding some of the crime and scams you're likely going to be seeing increase in this period of time. So my last one, this one is purely practical skills, which I think people will benefit the most. Get both, so as we have a clear idea. Honestly, it's going to be giving you much of a clearer picture in terms of what happens when all of this breaks, when hell breaks loose like this, and you start seeing the economy go down and violence on the streets. Those two are the biggest concerns we had in Argentina. Argentines worry and still worry till this day. 20 years later about the economy, specifically about inflation and about security, about staying safe and not getting killed or hurt. Those are the things you have to worry about yourself. And then there's trying to make a short list. First, look after yourself. You are your most important, valuable tool and weapon, and that means staying healthy, eating well, trying to stay in shape, exercise, work out. It goes into much more deeper than that. It's about the stress you're going to be suffering during this period of time and how staying healthy will help you get through this. Also in terms of actual physical labor, if that's something you have to do, being healthy will allow you to do that. Not getting sick, avoiding big medical bills, keeping your immune system up, giving everything that's going on, that's another thing you want to work on. So looking after yourself, that's definitely the number one thing. And then in terms of the economy, finding ways of becoming more productive, finding ways of starting your own little side business, whatever it is that you like. If you have a passion of any kind, today it's easier to monetize that than it ever was. Start your own YouTube channel, write a book, do something with what you like doing. If you like surfing, see about making your own surfboards and start your own Instagram showing how you make those and sell those.
Right.
Just an example. Whatever it is that you like doing, try to make at least part of a living doing that as well. You never know how things turn out. If you work hard on whatever it is that you like doing and make good decisions, there's a good chance that will work out for you. Whatever savings you have, sure.
Oh, I was going to say, and sorry for interrupting you. I thought you were done with that. Here's the question. Everyone watching right now, pretend they are your best friend. And pretend you know economic collapse is coming like it did in Argentina in the next 6 months. What are the top 3 things, the 3 items, the 3 supplies you would encourage them to get?
Yeah, get yourself a gun. First of all, no one else is going to be telling you that because it's politically extremely incorrect. But it's been my experience that when things get really crazy, people do crazy things. And the only way you can stop that is having some tools to defend yourself. So even if you don't like guns, that's okay. Consider it like a fire extinguisher. Buy yourself a basic revolver and take at least one class with an instructor that is serious and responsible and doesn't think himself as Rambo. Just a serious guy that's going to be explaining you how to safely handle that thing. That is the thing that when the nightmare happens, that's going to be the big difference of making it or not. And then, of course, precious metals, it's huge. It's going to be the way in which you protect and preserve what savings you have. Again, I like having different options. So money in a bank, if you have a bank overseas, that's even better. But of course, it's a lot more difficult for a lot of people. But there's always things you can do about that. In terms of precious metals, in terms of crypto, it's something I like as well. So having a nice selection of options there and keeping some cash in hand as well. If you have some cash in hand, I can guarantee you that it's going to be coming in handy, especially during that first period of time. And then on top of that, food, you're going to be eating anyway. Stock up on the kind of things you already eat, the kind of things you know your family already likes. Look at what happened right now when everyone was rushing to buy toilet paper. Have those supplies ahead of hand.
You know what's funny, Fernando? I did a parody video when all that was going on. Because, silver stackers and gold stackers, they'll do videos on their full silver gold stack and they'll lay it on a table and talk about it.
Yeah.
So I had like 55 rolls of toilet paper that I just found in my family's house. And I'm like, check out my full toilet paper stack. But
it's more valuable than platinum.
I mean, people don't want to use leaves, man. They want to use toilet paper. And I know what a lot of you are thinking, like, how can you prepare and get silver and gold and these different things? What Fernando said about the side hustle, I really like. Finding a side hustle, and for me, YouTube's become one, but finding a side hustle that works. But guess what, folks? This kilo bar you see in front of you is on my next mega GAW, and GAW, G-A-W, stands for giveaway. I'm giving this away in the near future. I gave away a kilo like 8 months ago. I'm giving away another kilo and a bunch of other silver and coins. So if you're watching, watch for this video. This is your chance to get this kilo. And if it saves you during the economic collapse, I want you to let me know. And Fernando, this is open for you too, man. You can enter it as well. You could take this kilo home. Well, just to kind of round things up, is there any other final advice or final things you want to, give to the viewers, even if it's totally unrelated to what we're talking about?
No, I think you have to stay calm. Don't panic because going nuts over all of this. It's very easy to get scared and panic and make bad decisions. This is a time to stay cool-headed. I mean, watch my channel. The Modern Survivalist is my YouTube channel. I've been doing this for many years. I have a pile of content. You don't have to just, yes, of course, I sell my books, and I do believe they're very good tools for you. But if not, you have my YouTube channel. Just use a search function. I've covered all sorts of topics over the years. So use those tools that are available to you and start preparing now. Start getting busy.
And that's my next question. Where can people find you at? Give us everything. I want the website. I want the social media. I want the Amazon. I want everything.
Well, okay, my books are available in Amazon. If you look up Ferfal or Fernando Aguirre, you will have my books available there. And those are the ones I recommend the most. And there's also another one that I wrote that's called Bugging Out and Relocating. That's something you may want to check out as well if things get even worse than they are now. But also in terms of making some decisions of relocating right now before things get a little bit more complicated, maybe something we want to check out. My YouTube channel, The Modern Survivalist. My Instagram is Ferfal308. Also, you can follow me there. Yeah, that would be it.
And I'm going to throw all those links up. So when you were just saying all that, people are going to see it in text. It'll help them find you. My final question is, gold has broken all-time record highs in terms of U.S. dollars. Silver, last I checked, is $26, something like that. What's your prediction? Now, we're not going to hold you to this. We're not going to sue you. But if you had to predict by the end of the year the price of silver, what do you think it will be?
Man, by the end of the year, depending on how things go, it could go up 50% more easily if things get a little bit more crazy than they are. And then after that, who knows? I just try to keep it reasonable, but we are in very complicated times. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some crazy stuff happen.
Now, soon I'm headed to Poland. I'm going to go visit the Germania Mint. I'm meeting up with Backyard Bullion in London. What if I took a quick flight down to Spain? Would you want to meet up and make some videos, and maybe I'll bring you some treasure?
Yeah, sure. We could talk about it depending on how things are because of, well, what you know in terms of international flights at this moment, how things are turning out.
Man, I'm international stacker. I can get anywhere. Don't you worry about that. Well, thank you so much, Fernando. I really appreciate it. Your story is super interesting. And folks, I encourage you to check out his YouTube channel, check out his books. Super cool guy. He's been there. All of us on YouTube talk about being prepared and this can happen, that can happen. He has lived through it. And experience by being, trial by fire is the best experience and wisdom you can learn from. So I encourage you to check him out. And like, comment, subscribe. Please go bomb his channel right now, not literally, but with the subscribe button, and help out a fellow stacker and a fellow survivalist out. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, please like, comment, subscribe, and let me share my journey with you, traveling the world, buying gold and silver, and maybe soon I will be in Spain. What do you think about that, Fernando?
Absolutely. We'll go for a few tapas.
Oh, I love the tapas, but you're telling me to take care of my body and stay in shape, so I don't know. That might be counterintuitive. That might not help. Well, thank you so much, Fernando, and I always end my videos with saying, catch you on the next one. Can you say that for us?
Yeah, catch you in the next one.
Woo! See you guys later.
One stacker on a journey.